So it's quite a long route from the author to you. And as far as the publisher's concerned, the journey ended with the printed page. As far as the publisher's concerned, the printed page is the end of the journey. But for you, it has to then go and do another couple of labs. And it has to be converted to HTML, and the MathML will need correction. I don't think I really understood that as being what was really happening. I'm not quite sure where I thought the pages were coming from, but you've given me some sort of more basic information there that so even if there were a better way of making the mathematics available to you, if it didn't work with that workflow, you can't use it. If it can't, so to speak, follow on afterwards, after the Infinity Reader has done its stuff, to give you a better output. Somehow it's like a very long chain of events, and you're not quite sure where you should change things to make things better. Should you change it at the author end, the publishing end? Should you change it at the screen reader end? Should you change it at this conversion stage or that conversion stage? That seems to me a sort of considerable problem in this whole thing, is that this long chain of events and the output isn't satisfactory, but we don't know where it went wrong. And for you, reading the mathematics is part of it's being scanned by Infinity Reader and converted into MathML and so forth. So there's a sort of whole process in that context that is creating the MathML or the mathematics that you can't read so as well as you'd like. And any solution has to take that into account and has to work with that or change that.
So Infinity Reader has different outputs. They can create MathML, then Word file, that Microsoft Docs or something, then text file, TXT.
Okay, I'm looking at things in a slightly different way, and I'm quite keen on this way, which is not which of these many options is the best one to use and what they are and what extra options should we want, but simply what is the experience you have and in what ways is it satisfactory and in what ways is it unsatisfactory. To sort of use a stupid analogy, if you go to a restaurant, you don't particularly want to know how the food is cooked. You just want to say, well, it's burnt or it's too hot, or do you see what I mean? I want to know what the user experience, what the user experience is, and how it's satisfactory, and how it isn't. That's, if you like, the thing that we really want to change at your end is the user experience. And the fact that the chef is called the Infinity Reader.
So in some cases, some equations are not really correctly read through the MathML when it is converted through the Infinity. So there might be some problem with OCR or something. I'm not sure.
So the equations are coming through distorted.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know how they after some, it's like a bad Zoom conversation. The voice is distorted, but after you listen for a bit, you realize what's being said. So you have to work hard, and then you realize what was actually said.
No, sometimes even it is not understandable what is the exact equation is. Sometimes it's
Oh,
just a garbage.
Oh, it's just random garbage
Yeah.
sometimes. Okay. So there's an unreliability in the experience.
Mm.
And then presumably you have to ask somebody who is sighted to fix that unreliability, because you have to wait for that to happen. And how long, may I ask, do you have to wait?
That depend on availability. If I get
Is it
assistance,
half an hour? Is it half an hour or a day or?
in India, it's terrific. I mean, uh, many times I don't get human assistance also. That depend on course instructors. If course instructor is aware, then I will get facilities. Otherwise, I just have to rely on the mercy of the God.
Sanchit, I found one of the resources I was mentioning earlier. It's on TextHelp, TextHelp.com. They have a tool called Screen Reader, which is part of their Equation IO tool. And you can highlight a math equation and it tries to convert it and read it out loud. No guarantees how well it works, but worth looking into if it helps you. I also
Thank you,
posted
sir.
in the comments if it helps you.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll definitely try this.
We've gone over time a bit here. I think it's all right. I've noticed that I tend to look at things from developer eyes, because that's what I'm used to doing. And Tani quite rightly looks at it in terms of, well, somebody's got a problem, how can we solve it today or tomorrow? Or at least, you know, there's these two different aspects to it of how can we make the whole world a better place, and
I think I take both. I like to wear both hats.
What?
But I feel a responsibility to the user end and not only to the developer end, right? In web work, I'm working also on the development side.
Yeah.
But the end users, our client in a certain sense. Our students are our clients, and if some of them need an additional features to be able to learn, we want to give them what we can when we have tools that might help them. One of the things I find particularly challenging is as you said, as Nelson said, most of us are used to using PDF as our output format, and typical PDFs are sort of just LaTeX generated PDFs are sort of a layout of gibberish symbols. But some of the more modern LaTeX packages actually make sure that the text is copy pastable. And I posted about one of these packages that tries to put a LaTeX alt form into the PDF so that someone who has the right tool can actually pull the LaTeX back out of the PDF file. Again, it's a linear format. It's something you can learn to read, and it's in some sense easier maybe to parse than the tree at sometimes. But it definitely doesn't give you the ability to pull the blocks apart, whereas your parser tree actually can tell you, you have unit A plus unit B plus unit C, and you can work on them one at a time, which is what Jonathan said, that the syntax tree or the structure tree is going to give you the ability to determine what is a logical block in an equation. Whereas the linear form won't help you that unless there happens to be, parentheses that you notice block something.
Going back to dissemination, I've got a suggestion, which is that we gather some examples and say, these examples are good in this way and not good in that way. In fact, for all of them, we can say these are the good points about these examples and these are the bad points about these examples from the point of view of accessibility, and try and do it in a way that people that don't know very much about accessibility can actually learn something useful and be in some position to evaluate whether the stuff they've got, what's good and bad in it, sort of give them some sort of accessibility sensitivity as to what works and what doesn't work. Does that sound like something worth doing? Here's something that people with this disability will not have a problem with. This is something that people with this disability will have a problem with. Does that? I'm not saying we do it as a sort of systematic cover everything, but just start gathering examples. Does that sound like a useful thing to do?
It sounds very useful because almost anybody who's not really actively doing, I don't know, either development or has an accessibility orientation, they find it very difficult to understand why you're telling them some of the rules for web content accessibility. You know, the standard example, one of the standard rules of the web content standards is you can't use color to transfer information. But everybody used to do that, right? You want to mark something in red and so everybody will notice it. But if you can't see colors or you're using a screen reader, it's more or less meaningless that you highlight it in red or marked in red. So these are the type of things, yes, the stories, the short stories like that will help people understand why accessibility matters. And then you could follow them with tips, you know, what to do around, how to work around it. You know, the new version of bold in HTML is strong, which not only says that there's a font change, but that there's an emphasis.
So I recently put some pages through the Wave web accessibility tool and found it very helpful. And I thought it might be helpful to have a sort of similar tool for mathematical content, although I'm not quite sure what it would be. And a first step towards that tool would be a list of pages with problems. And the tool should find the problems. So simply, here are some pages, and a human being has gone through and found the problems. Now you go and write a tool that will find those same problems in lots and lots of pages. That is, if you like, a journey. And at the one end of the journey are people such as Sanchit, who are experts at knowing what the problems are, because everybody is an expert about their own life and their own experience. I mean, I've never met anybody in the room, in the world, that knows more about me than I do, perhaps. And the experts in accessibility of materials, in some sense, the users are the experts as well. So in a sense, I see that as what the user stories is doing, is saying, these are the problems we've got. This is what's difficult. And, you know, these are the things that I find difficult and why I find them difficult. And there may be several conversations required to get a clear idea of why it's difficult. And that can then be turned into an example. And if we do it in the right way, it can be an example saying, well, if you have the choice, and by God, I think you should have, if you have the choice, then do this and don't do that. Because if you do that, somebody will have difficulty, and here's why they'll have difficulty, but don't do that. That's the sort of picture I'm sort of seeing coming out of this. And in a certain sense, it's do for math accessibility what has been done for ordinary text for a long time. And that's echoing, I think, what Nathan said.
One of my interesting observations. Please go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, Sanjay.
So yeah, one of my observation with the blind person means I'm a partially blind. So one of my observation with my friends is they don't know how the character is look like. I mean, they don't have visualization for characters. So mathematical symbol doesn't mean anything for them. Means how the integration look like, and so it doesn't make any sense while navigating through the MathJax navigation, MathML navigation thing. So rather they prefer easy part. One more thing is, if we could get somebody who knows Braille, I think Nimath Braille for maths, and if latex could be transferred in the Braille part, accessible, so that will be the again good accessible thing.
I'm pretty sure there's a translator from LaTeX to Nemeth Braille. Again, on the blind math list, I'm pretty sure I saw mentions of it. Somebody could Google it.
Not, I'm not just saying LaTeX syntax translation. I'm saying the PDF output or web.
But I'm saying I think you can translate a LaTeX file and produce a Nemeth Braille output document instead of a PDF file, if you actually had the source file.
I think here's something that should go into our rogues gallery, which is never throw away your LaTeX source. Even if you can't put it in the document, don't throw it away. And it's a bit of an aside. A bit of an aside. The LaTeX team have got this big plan to make accessible PDFs. Well, and to maintain backwards compatibility. Well, if they can do both, then documents that were produced this year, in 5 years' time, can be produced as accessible PDF, provided we still have the provided we still have the LaTeX source and the environment in which they were created. So one of the key rules is don't throw away the sources of generated files. When you have a generated file, keep the source of the file and keep the environment that created the file, just in case something better comes along, or just in case you have to do something with it. And
I tried advocating that as a policy in a Technion, but it's difficult to force people to submit what not everybody expects to be there. I said, put a hidden link to the LaTeX file when you put up your PDF file, and then we'll have the PDF, the LaTeX file inside Moodle where you want when you want it one day. But people don't do things when they don't see an immediate benefit, and it falls behind.
It's a good idea. Why can't everybody be nice to each other? I think we've gone over time by a quarter of an hour. I'd like to thank you all, even our friendly lurker Dwight, for...
I hope you don't mind that I've been lurking.
Not at all. Now that I know your face.
A lurker means you're interested. We want you to come.
Anyway, thank you for the information.
Next week, we're focusing on conversion, and who knows what will happen, because who knows what the interests are. But what I'm interested in is architectures or strategies for getting multiple outputs, like PDF and HTML and XML and Nemeth, Braille and whatever.